بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على عبده ورسوله أما بعد. We were previously explaining the 13th section of Kitab al-Salah. The author rahimahullah ta'ala, he says Babu Salat al-Safar, regarding the traveler's prayer. Just like all the other chapters of fiqh, we see the ease of Islam and the comprehensive nature of the Sharia al-Islamiyah, whereas the ibadah of Allah Azza wa Jal is not restricted to a time or place. It isn't restricted to a continent or country. It isn't restricted to a race or culture and ethnicity. It isn't restricted to a gender or an age. That you pray when you're home and you pray when you're on the road, in an airplane, on a boat, a ship, a submarine. Pray when you're in a car if you have to. Pray when you're standing up on the side of the road, at a road stop, at the airport, whatever the case may be. So Islam is comprehensive and thorough for all aspects and spheres of life. Secondly is the rulings of traveling, just like buying and selling, just like witnesses, testimonies, and things like this. The original rules, the rules that were laid down 1400 years ago, and the evolution of the different schools, the modern day rules are based off of them. And all modern day current issues are based off of the ancient values and principles. It doesn't matter what the mode of travel may be. Obviously, in the time of Imam Abu Hanifa or the time of Imam al-Awza'i, in the time of Ibn Hazm, let alone the time of Ibn Taymiyyah, there wasn't these different types of modern futuristic types of or ways of traveling, in which you can be in one continent and then be in another continent within a matter of hours. Okay, be on one hemisphere on the next hemisphere in half of a day. There wasn't necessarily no such thing as jet lag. The concept of naval warfare, the concept of nautical exploration, the concept of someone being in a cruise ship or a speedboat, the concept of a submarine being submerged underwater and traveling through the water. It didn't exist in their time. However, the principles and the values, the basic rulings are the same. And anything which is modern and futuristic, the ulama of today, the people of knowledge of today, the students of knowledge of today, it is their job to go back to the ancient principles, the original foundations, and extract and derive the modern day rulings, and that which is accurate and that which is appropriate for, or appropriate with regards to the maxims of the deen, the qawa'id kulliyah, and the concept of simplicity and ease, and the concept of holding fast to the kitab and the sunnah to the best of one's ability, and not making the asl a rukhsa, not making the asl the rule of thumb is that you don't have to do it, and Allah knows what's in your heart, and I can't do it because it's too difficult. No, that's not the asl. The asl is that you must pray. The asl is that you have to face the qibla. The asl is that you have to stand up. The asl is that you have to represent yourself as a Muslim unless there's a time, a place, or a situation in which you cannot. Khairan, inshallah. That's a very long discussion, and this is not the proper place for it. So the author says, Salatul Safar, the traveler's prayer. يجب القصر على من خرج من بلده قاصدا للسفر وإن كان دون بريد وإذا أقام ببلد مترددا قصر إلى 20 يوما وإذا عزم على إقامة 4 أتم بعدها وله الجمع تقديم وتأخير بأذان وإقامتين. As is Imam Shawkani's normal style of total and absolute simplicity and lack of elongating things unnecessarily in the beginner's manual, he starts off by saying, يجب القصر. It's mandatory to shorten the prayer. Those who leave their cities, leave their towns, with the intention of safar, with the intention of traveling, even if it doesn't reach a specific amount of distance, barid, an ancient amount of calculating distance, even if it does not reach this specific amount of distance, if you leave your town with the intention of safar, of traveling for a far distance to another city, another town, he says the first ruling is that it's permissible to shorten your prayer. No, he says yajibul qasr. He says you must shorten your prayer. So the first mas'ala of the chapter is the ruling of al-qasr, the ruling of shortening the prayer. According to this manual, according to this imam, he says that the prayer must be shortened. So we understand as beginners, it is not an option, according to this mode of teaching. Rather, it is something which is mandatory to shorten the prayer. The second ruling, or masala, is what is the distance of traveling? And when does a person become a traveler? With regards to shortening the prayer, and any other ruling that is for or against, or meaning yani upon the traveler, such as breaking the fast, so on and so forth. He says, if you leave your home, and the moment that you leave your home, you leave your balad, your town, your city, your village, even if you didn't get that far yet, but your niyyah is to go far, is to actually take a trip to make safar, then you've now become a musafir. You've now become a traveler. You must shorten your prayers. And anything else that is obligatory upon a traveler now applies to you. And anything else which is recommended or permissible for the traveler now applies to you as well, even if it's doing a barid. As we have explained before, the scholars of Islam differ on what is the exact distance in which a person becomes a traveler. Is it based off of mileage, or is it based off of custom and tradition? The author gives you a simple way out of this by saying the moment you leave your town with the intention of traveling. So a modern day example of this would be, let's say for example, someone lives in the city of Philadelphia, for example. Let's make an example of this. And they wish to travel to Newark, New Jersey, North Jersey. This is considered traveling without any difference of opinion. With regards to the mileage, it's going to be more than 50 miles. Also, with regards to the tradition and the custom of the people, everyone from the United States is going to agree that going to Newark, New Jersey, North Jersey, is not Philadelphia. It's a different state, a different city, a different atmosphere, different environment, different culture, different type of people, period. So, when do I begin my actual musafir mode, mindset? When I leave Philadelphia, and hypothetically speaking, a person says, I want to drive across the Ben Franklin Bridge. I get across the Ben Franklin Bridge, and I'm now in Camden, New Jersey. I drive from Camden, New Jersey, until roughly I get into the area known as Cherry Hill. That entire, that area, Black Horse Pike, so on and so forth. And then I eventually get on the New Jersey Turnpike until I drive for some time until I get to Newark, New Jersey. So when did I become a traveler? According to the author, he says the moment that I leave my balad, my town, my city. So that would be, I'm in Old City, Philadelphia, there at the, before I get on to the Ben Franklin Bridge, and I'm across the Delaware River, okay, Penn's Landing, or whatever the case is. At that point, I'm still in Philadelphia. The moment I get on the bridge, I'm on top of the Delaware River. I'm not in Philadelphia, nor I'm not in Pennsylvania, nor am I in New Jersey. I'm over top of the river now. From that point, I've officially left Philadelphia. So, according to the author, even though my intention is for Newark, New Jersey, which is very far, I'm officially a traveler once I get upon the Ben Franklin Bridge, because I've left Philadelphia with the intention of going to Newark, New Jersey. So it no longer applies distance. Distance does not apply, nor is custom People says the Ben Franklin Bridge isn't traveling. Somebody may say Camden, New Jersey isn't traveling. Somebody may say this, but the point is I've left my balad with the niyat al-safar, biqasd al-safar, with the intention of traveling. Qasidan lis-safar, with the intention of traveling. So therefore, based off of this, that's when my trip actually begins. So hypothetically speaking, the author says, "Well, kana duna badid," even if it's less than a badid, or in kana duna badid, if I had to stop my car and pray on the side of the bridge, I would be a traveler. Or if I had a water bottle and I was thirsty in Ramadan, or even if I wasn't thirsty because I want to break my fast, I'm officially a traveler on the bridge, even though I didn't drive 50 miles, even though the people and the customs, so on and so forth, the other kalam of the ulama of those madhabs. Khair inshallah, hopefully that's clear. The author, he then says, وَإِذَا أَقَامَ بِبَلَدٍ مُتَرَدِّدًا قَصَرَ إِلَى 20 يَوْمًا. The next issue is, how long am I allowed to shorten my prayers? How long am I allowed to shorten my prayers when I'm traveling? The author, he says, if you stay in a city or a town, a country for 20 days, مُتَرَدِّدًا, unsure of how long you want to stay. You're not sure how long it's going to take to get the operation, or to get married, or to get this ijazah from the sheikh, or visit in a hospital, or a business deal, or whatever the case may be. You visit someone and they say, just come over my house, just come and stay. You can stay as long as you want to. You go back whenever you want to go back. He says, if you do not have the intention of staying there for a specific amount of time, but you're mutaraddid, I could leave tomorrow, I could finish the operation next week, I could get the ijazah in an hour, it may take 10 days, I don't know. He says then you have the option of staying there for up to 20 days. 20 days of staying there with shortening the prayers. In other words, even if you stay in a place for 21 days, or 22 days, or 23 days, and you're still mutaraddid, you're still unsure of what you need or have to do in this place, you don't know how long you want to stay, you keep getting a hotel every 2 nights, every 3 nights, every day in the morning they call you, are you going to renew your stay or not? Check-in is at 11, check-in is at 12. Even if you're still like this, but it's past 20 days, the author says you're no longer allowed to shorten the prayers. You're no longer allowed to shorten the prayers. He says, وَإِذَا عَزَمَ عَلَىٰ إِقَامَةِ أَرْبَعٍ أَتَمَّ بَعْدَهَا. As far as if you have the intention on staying in a place for 4 days, 4 days or more, of course, but at least 4 days, he says, then you are to make the salah in the normal length after the 4 days. After the 4 days. After the 4 days. Tayyib. So therefore, you go to a hotel and you book the hotel for 4 nights. And you know for sure that what I need to do or what I want to do in this place is not going to take no less than 4 nights, 4 days. Okay? So you book the hotel for 4 days. 4 nights, however you want to word it. The author says you're allowed to shorten your prayer the first, second, third, and fourth day. But if you renew on the 5th day for a 5th night, then you now make the prayer in the normal length. Or the Dhuhr is 4, Asr is 4, Isha is 4. Clear on that, inshallah. Other ulama, they may say that if you intend on staying in a place for 4 days or more, then you stop shortening the prayers from the first day because you have the intention of doing that. In other words, I go to a hotel and I book the room for 6 nights. That first day, that first night that I check in, I'm making the prayer the normal length, even though I didn't stay there for 4 days or 5 days or 6 days yet. The author says after the 4. After the 4. Moving forward. وله الجمع تقديما وتأخيرا بأذان وإقامتين. The next ruling is combining the prayers. Was the ruling on combining the salah when traveling? The author says that you are allowed to combine the salah, Dhuhr and Asr, Maghrib and Isha, تقديما وتأخيرا. You can make dhuhr and then asr in the time of dhuhr. Or he says you can make dhuhr at the time of asr and then asr. You can make maghrib as soon as it comes in and then make isha. Or you can make maghrib when isha comes in and then make isha. Both are permissible, the author says. In this beginner's manual, the author does not give the details of do you have to pray as soon as the salat comes in, or you can delay it for 30 minutes or an hour. For example, you're driving in a car and you want to make salat al-dhuhr and asr together. And let's say salat al-dhuhr comes in at, let's say, 1 o'clock p.m., 1 p.m. But you don't make the dhuhr and asr, you don't stop until 3 p.m. The asr is not in. Let's say asr comes at 5 p.m. Can you stop the car, go to the rest stop, use the bathroom, make wudu, and make dhuhr and asr at 3 p.m.? Or does it have to be as soon as dhuhr comes in? 1:15, 1:30, وهكذا. Also, the author doesn't get into the details of the concept of when a person is on the road, when a person stops, and when a person gets to his location. In other words, a person is actually sa'ir. I'm riding on the plane, in the plane, on the train. Can I make the salat on the train, sitting down, not facing the qibla? Or when I stop, can I combine the salats? Or when I get to my destination and it's less than 2 days, less than 4 days, am I still allowed to combine the salat? These are all side issues that I mentioned in this beginner's manual. What's important is starting off making an asl as a student of knowledge and as a 9 to 5 Muslim is you'd have a basis, a foundation to build upon, and clarity of the concept is that when you're traveling, whatever that necessitates, on the road, on the side of the road, 3 days, whatever the case may be, however long you are, 20 days, and then whenever you're a traveler and you're shortening a prayer, you can also combine the salah. He says, taqdeeman wa ta'khira, as we just explained. In the beginning of one prayer's time or in the beginning of the latter prayer's time. He says, bi adhanin wa iqamatayn. Only one adhan. Only one adhan. He says, and 2 iqamas. So hypothetically speaking, you would make the adhan for salat al-dhuhr, and then you would make the iqama for salat al-dhuhr, and then you would make the iqama for salat al-asr, regardless whether it was in the time of dhuhr or in the time of al-asr. And bid'Allah ta'ala, hopefully this is clear. Like we said before, this is a beginner's manual, and there are many issues that are not to be mentioned and should not be mentioned in a beginner's manual. Khairan inshallah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is the end of the chapter of As-Safar. Al-Bab al-Rabi Ashar, Babu Salat al-Kusufayn. The 14th chapter or the 14th section is that of the prayer for the eclipse. The prayer of the 2 eclipse, Kusufayn, or this lunar or solar. Al-Kusuf, and some ulama say khusuf. We've explained this with some type of detail in our lessons on the kusuf. We did 2 sessions on it a few weeks back when there was a total eclipse in the United States. Khairan inshallah. So we have a lunar eclipse and we have solar eclipse. And we explained the differences between the 2 words with a kaf and with a kha, and how they are interchangeable. What's important is the Muslim to make the salah when it is an eclipse, a total or partial, solar or lunar. We've explained the reasons and the wisdoms behind this, that an eclipse is from the ayat of Allah Azza wa Jal, and it's also symbolic towards the going away of this dunya, and the establishment of the hour, and the establishment of the qiyamah. And that a person is to make dhikr of Allah, istighfar, ask Allah's forgiveness, give sadaqah, and return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and not just put on eclipse glasses, sunglasses, and look at the sky and wonder and marvel, and that's it. And then go back to your evil, wicked deeds. Khairan, inshallah. The author says, هي سنة وأصح ما ورد في صفتها ركعتان في كل ركعة ركوعان وورد 3 و4 و5 يقرأ بين كل ركوعين وورد في كل ركعة ركوع وندب الدعاء تكبير والتصدق والاستغفار. The author says, first and foremost, giving you the main ruling of the eclipse prayer, or the prayer for the eclipse. He says it is a sunnah, it is recommended. Obviously, speaking in the kalam of the fuqaha, when they say sunnah, they mean something that is preferable, virtuous, and not mandatory. And they don't necessarily mean what the ulama of hadith mean when they say sunnah. Sunnah could be something that's fard, according to Ahl al-Hadith. The people of hadith, they may say salat al-khams, salawat al-khams. The 5 daily prayers is sunnah. It is a sunnah. It's a way of Muhammad. It doesn't mean that it is mandatory. But the fuqaha, when they say it, they mean something that is not what? Mandatory. So therefore, he says that the eclipse prayer is recommended. So that's the first ruling, the hukm, the ruling of Salatul Kusufain, is that it's recommended. Therefore, you're not to force anyone to do it, nor someone to be criticized and repudiated for leaving them off. That's the fruits and the athar mutarattiba, the things that come into play, into practice, when a thing is or isn't obligatory. If it's not obligatory, it cannot make tadlil. You cannot declare someone to be a deviant. If it is not obligatory, you cannot force someone to do it. Those who are, you cannot force them to do it. And if you do force them to do it, someone that's under your guardianship, then it's only from the concept of haf, of encouraging people to do good and things like this. But it's not lazim. Also, if someone leaves it off, they do not become a fasiq. And their shahada, their testimony is still considered, etc. Moving forward. The author says, the most authentic description of Salatul Kusufain, he says the most authentic, not the only description, but the one that's most authentic to him, what he considers to be most authentic, is that it's 2 rak'ah. Not 3, not 4, but 2. He says, and there should be ruku' done twice in every rak'ah. There should be ruku' that's done 2 times in every single rak'ah. Obviously, in the normal prayers, it's just 1 ruku' in each rak'ah. You recite the Fatiha and the Surah, you say Allahu Akbar, you go to ruku', Subhana Rabbil Azim, Subhana Rabbil Azim, Subhana Rabbil Azim. You come out, Sami Allahu liman hamidah, Rabbana lakal hamd, the different ways of saying it, the other extra subrogatory supplications when you come out of ruku', and you go to sujood, and that's it. But here, he says you go into ruku', then you come out of ruku' and back into qiyam once more and recite again. That's a ruku'. So he says 2 of these in each rak'ah. He then says here, and there also athar, he says here, وَوَرَدَ 3 و4 و5. He says, and there are other narrations that they are 3, 4, and 5. The author mentioned he chooses 2. طيب. He then says, and every 2 ruku'ain he is to recite, as we just explained. Recite the Fatiha, and let's say Surah Al-Baqarah. Then you go into ruku', say the supplications of ruku', come out of ruku', and then go back into qiyam and recite once more. Then you go into the sujood, etc. He then says, وَوَرَدَ فِي كُلِّ رَكْعَةٍ رُكُوءٌ. And there's also a narration that says that in each rak'ah is just 1 ruku'. The author here is going against his normal style, in which he doesn't mention the different, he says, وَوَرَدَ is mentioned, meaning there's a hadith on it. There's an athar. He's going against his normal style here. He normally doesn't do this. Normally doesn't give this type of option like this. He normally just gives one decisive view, one decisive opinion, one decisive instruction, or a set of instructions, which is the way of the beginner's manual. Why did he do it like this here? For several reasons. First and foremost is to show the diversity of it. It's not one way that it has to be done. And secondly, perhaps because maybe there are different narrations, he didn't necessarily have a specific, stringent, rigid view on what to do. This is the best way, the most authentic way, but there are other ways as well. Khairan inshallah ta'ala. The author, he also says, وَنُدِبَ الدُّعَاءُ, he says, and it's also recommended to make dua, to supplicate to Allah. And it's also recommended to make takbir, to say Allahu Akbar. And it's recommended to give sadaqah. And it's recommended to make istighfar, to ask Allah Azza wa Jal to forgive you. Khairan inshallah. The last and final chapter, or last and final section in Kitab al-Salah, the author says, Al-Bab al-Khamis Ashar, Babu Salat al-Istisqa. He says the prayer of asking for rain. The prayer that's made when there is a drought. There's no rain. People are suffering, animals suffer, the crops, the farmland, etc. To beg Allah to send down the rain and for Allah Azza wa Jalla to forgive them of their sins, which is mentioned in some athar, a reason behind rain not coming down. The author rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, تُسَنُّ عِنْدَ الْجَدْبِ رَكْعَتَانِ بَعْدَهُمَا خُطْبَةٌ تتضمن الذكر والترغيب في الطاعة والزجر عن المعصية. He says here, it is recommended at the time of drought. Once again, Salat al-Istisqa, seeking rain, is just like the kusuf, the eclipse. The author holds the view that it's not obligatory, but it's only recommended, preferable thing to do. He says, at the time of drought, then there should be 2 rak'ah. It says rak'atain. Two, not 3, 2. He says, ba'dahuma khutbatun, in which there should be a sermon afterwards. A sermon should be given afterwards. In other words, just like Salat al-Eid, the prayer coming before the khutbah, not like Jumu'ah. He says in this sermon, it should include the following things. Number 1, al-dhikr. It says the dhikr of Allah, including tasbih, tahmeed, takbir, tahleel, la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah, sending prayers upon the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He says, and to encourage the people to obey Allah. He should push them and encourage them, inspire them to be pious, to be righteous, and to push them far away, intimidate them from committing acts of disobedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is what the Imam should mention, the Khatib. He then says, وَيَسْتَكْثِرُ الْإِمَامُ وَمَنْ مَعَهُ الْإِسْتِغْفَارُ وَالدُّعَاءُ. Oh, he says, وَمَنْ مَعَهُ. It's a pretty mistake here in the book. وَيَسْتَكْثِرُ الْإِمَامُ وَمَنْ مَعَهُ مِنَ الْإِسْتِغْفَارِ وَالدُّعَاءِ بِرَفْعِ الْجَدْبِ وَيُحَوِّلُونَ جَمِيعًا أَرْضِيَتَهُمْ. He says here, the Imam and those who are with the Imam, those who are praying with him, his entourage, his security, people that are there to help him, to serve him, whoever is with him, the people that are praying there, he says they should make an abundance of al-istighfar, an abundance of seeking Allah's forgiveness. Say it abundantly, astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah. And also to pray and ask Allah to beg Him to remove the drought, to take it away from them, and to send down the water. Last but not least, he says, وَيُحَوِّلُونَ جَمِيعًا أَرْضِيَتَهُمْ, and they should also take their clothes and flip them, reverse them, topsy-turvy, upside down, right, left, crisscross. He says here, يُحَوِّلُونَ, they should turn them, change them. In other words, the right side on the left, some ulama say, the right side on the left. And some say, may say roll them up, flip them. For the purpose, what's the purpose of this, you may ask? The scholars of Islam, they say, it is symbolic and significant to the situation changing, to prosperity. In other words, after severe drought, hunger, famine, starvation, crops being destroyed, being lost, animals, the heat, so on and so forth, then comes the exact opposite. The rain comes, the water comes, the people can eat and drink, the rivers, the ponds, and so on and so forth, the wells, the trenches, all of the grasslands, and so on and so forth, the things now are renewed. That is the symbolicism of flipping or changing or inverting or mismatching the sides of the clothes for that purpose. So that's the end of the chapter of the Salah. Alhamdulillah, we have successfully completed study and commentary on the next chapter. The author Rahimahullah Ta'ala says, Kitabul Janais. The third kitab. First was Tahara, second was Salah, and now is the kitab of funerals. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala surely knows best. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu sallam wa barak ala abdihi wa rasulih.